The lawmakers in Michigan are weighing a similar move. Their proposal would require all new voters to show documented proof of U.S. citizenship, like a birth certificate or a passport when registering. This also mandates a government-issued photo ID to vote in person, ID. If you show up without it, you could still cast a provisional ballot, but it won't count unless you provide ID within 6 days. Election officials would also have to regularly check the citizenship status of every voter on file. Now, supporters say this change is just common sense, but Democrats argue it would create new barriers, especially for low-income voters, seniors, and people who don't have easy access to documents like birth certificates or passports. They call it a modern-day poll tax, saying it puts a price on voter registration for people who can't afford to prove their citizenship. Now, a first-time U.S. passport costs $165. Less than half of Americans have one. Ordering a birth certificate can cost up to $65. That price varies widely depending on where you were born. For naturalized citizens, replacing lost papers costs $555. And without them, there's often no other way, that is, to prove citizenship. Critics say it's not just about cost, it's about who could be left out. Low-income voters may struggle to afford the documents. Some seniors never needed ID and don't have birth records. Naturalized citizens could pay hundreds to replace lost papers. Name changes can create ID mismatches for many women. And in rural areas, ID services aren't always easy to reach. We are joined now by State Representative Bryan Posthumus, who is the sponsor of this proposed constitutional amendment in Michigan to require proof of citizenship to vote. It is wonderful to have you, Representative. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure.
It really is. We'll get to the criticisms in just a moment.
Yeah.
There's a lot of support for this effort, with so many saying this is truly a no-brainer. We'll address those criticisms, but why do you believe Michigan needs this amendment right now?
So, number one, let me start by saying I believe that it should be easy to vote and hard to cheat. And I also fundamentally believe that only U.S. citizens should be able to vote in our elections. 85% of the population agrees with the fact that only U.S. citizens should vote in our elections, and photo ID should be required when casting your ballot. So I think this is a no-brainer, and the vast majority of the population agrees.
So let's address some of the issues that we outlined. Some of the biggest criticisms of these moves are that the rate of in-person voter impersonation, something we haven't mentioned yet, is extremely low. So according to the Brennan Center, it accounts for only 0.00004% of all ballots cast in person. Other reports suggest nearly 20% of citizens over the age of 65, many of whom are low-income earners, lack an acceptable photo ID. What's your response to the argument that this is working to suppress the vote in some specific groups?
So, number one, I categorically deny that. I think that's a ridiculous assertion. Now, keep in mind, in Michigan, we had a foreign national vote in our election, and that ballot counted. Our Secretary of State admitted that there is a loophole in our election systems that allow foreign nationals to vote. And so my view is that it's a no-brainer that we should close that loophole. Keep in mind that the 2000 presidential election was determined by 527 votes. That's it. That's all. And so every single legal vote counts and should be counted. Every single illegal vote shouldn't be counted. In Michigan, there's no way to actually sparse that out. Further, there is a big push in states like Florida and California to allow non-citizens to vote in state and local elections. Again, I believe that only U.S. citizens should vote in our elections, and this amendment would ensure that.
So securing our elections, absolutely essential to maintaining our democracy. Let me throw every punch at you I have so you can make your case here. Do you have concerns this move may create roadblocks that prevent eligible people from voting? And if so, what solutions do you believe are fair here? Maybe even for the less than 1%.
So no, I don't. I'm not concerned about that at all. Now, I do understand and appreciate those concerns from individuals, but that's why we've taken strong steps to ensure that nobody gets disenfranchised. I mean, one of the main criticisms that we have is that we're trying to implement a poll tax. The reality is they must not have read the actual constitutional amendment.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.